Alright, that was awful. I forgot to mute desktop audio before checking the sound. But I sound pretty good today, don't I? Alright, hello, and welcome to a stream of some Christmas stories. Which ones? Fuck if I know. I only have one for sure lined up right now. We'll check around for others as we go. The first one on our docket is How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. But before we begin, I'd like to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. I probably will be streaming next week. I won't be streaming on Christmas, of course. It's gonna be either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day that I won't be streaming. Don't even know what days of the week those are yet. Haven't done the math, but just to be sure, I shall not be. Anyways, well, one of those at the very least will be one I am not here for. Anyways, I think it's time we got started. How the Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Also, apparently this book's like 50 pages long. I know the illustrations take up most of it, but Jesus Christ. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one quite knows the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, he stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's, staring down from his cave with a sour or grudgy frown at the warm lighted windows below in the town, for he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging a mistletoe wreath. And they're hanging those stockings, he snarled with a sneer. Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here. And he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming. For tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake up bright and early. They'd rush for their toys. And then, oh the noise, noise. That was the one thing he hated. The noise. I forgot a noise. I did it in 3s instead of 4s. Then the Who's young and old would sit down for a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who. Oh, that's roast. Sorry, the text on this one tiny bit small for what I'm reading here. Let's zoom in. Oh no, that's zooming in too much. They would feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beef, which was something the Grinch couldn't stand in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would gather close or would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing. They'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. They'd sing and they sing and they sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, I must stop this whole thing. For 53 years I put up with it now. I must stop this Christmas from coming. But how? And that's when he got an idea, an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch snarled, laughed in his throat. He'd make a quick Santa Claus hat and coat. He chuckled and chuckled. What a great Grinchy trick! With this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. The Grinch looked around, but since reindeer are scarce, there's none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No, the Grinch simply said, "If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead." So he called his dog Max. Then he took some red thread. Then he tied a big horn on the top of his head. And then loaded some bags and some old empty sacks. On a ramshackle sleigh he hitched up old Max. The Grinch said, "Get up!" And the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in the town. So hi Ume, Merry Christmas Doppel, I'm just driving to see you. Oh no, there's a sussy VTuber without pants, so I'm about to crash. I hope you don't mean me, I'm wearing a kimono. You don't wear pants with kimonos, that just sounds really hot. Like physically hot. I mean, unless you're into that kind of thing, in which case I can't really judge you. Sorry, it took me a while to see that. I should probably make some sort of note processing. I mean, you don't wear pants with a kimono. That's just simple. You wouldn't wear pants under a robe. Anyways, I actually should make a little pin. Can't compute. What do you mean you can't compute? You wouldn't put a hat on a helmet, let's put it that way. Let me go ahead and pin that. There we go. There we go. All the windows were dark. Quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were all dreaming sweet dreams without care. For he came to the first little house in the square. "This is stop number one," the old Gertie Claus hissed. He climbed to the roof, emptied bags in his fist. He then slid down the chimney, a rather tighter pitch. A rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two, then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue. While the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first thing to go." He then slithered and slunk, with a smile most unpleasant. Around the whole town he took every present. Pop guns and bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorns, and plums. He stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch very nimbly stuffed all the bags one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk into the icebox. He took the Who feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast beast. He cleaned up the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took that last can of Who hash. He stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee. And now, grinned the Grinch, I'll stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree. He started to shove, when he heard a small sound like a coo of a dove. He turned around fast, saw a small Who. Little Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. Would you? It both doesn't make sense. The Grinch just sounds a bit sussy. Yeah, he do, don't he? The Grinch had been caught by the tiny Who daughter, who got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" Oh, you know the old Grinch was so smart and so slick, he thought up a lie, and he thought of it quick. "Why, my sweet little Tot," the fake Santa Claus lied. "There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there. Then I'll bring it back here." And his fibful the child, he patted her head. He got her a drink and sent her to bed. Was Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup. He went to the chimney and stuffed the whole tree up. It's late there reading bedtime stories. No, not really. It's mid-afternoon. This was just the first Christmas story I found that I could read online. I'm gonna look for others after we finish this. But yeah, it's just gonna be a Christmas story reading stream. I thought it'd be fun and cute. The last thing he took was the log for the fire. He went up the chimney himself, the old liar. On the walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And that one speck of food he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. Then he did the same thing to the other Who houses, leaving crumbs much too small for other Who mouses. It was 1/4 past dawn. All the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze. When he packed up his sled, he packed it up with their presents, the ribbons, the wrappings, the tags, and the tinsel, the trimming, the trappings. Those 1,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, he rode with his load to the tip-top to dump it. "Who potch to the, or foo-foo to the Who's," he was grinchily humming. "They'll find out now that no Christmas is coming. They'll just wake up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two. The Who's down in Whoville will all cry boo-hoo." "There's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." "Or that's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." Then he paused, and the Grinch put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, then it started to grow. The sound wasn't sad. Why, the sounded merry. It couldn't be so, but it was merry, very. He stared out at Whoville. Now Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook what he saw all with a shocking surprise. Every Who down in Whoville, tall and small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came just the same. The Grinch, with his Grinch feet ice cold in snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? Or how could it be so? It came without ribbons. came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. He puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore, and the Grinch saw something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, at Whoville, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and brought back the toys, the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beef. Also, who feels problem? Let's sing. No, really, the Grinch. I know in the adaptations, it was very much a mixed bag with the adaptations. The Jim Carrey one was quite enjoyable, but the Who's are insufferable in that one. The only one who's actually worth their salt is the two Who ladies that raised the Grinch and Cindy Lou. Everyone else is just absolutely insufferable. And literally, they're arguing like the Grinch expected, kind of taking away from the scene in that one. But in the animated one, that's just a direct adaptation of the book. They don't fight, they just get up. They see nothing's around, they just go out, just decide to sing. No planning, no argument, no nothing. Jim Carrey is just an amazing actor. He makes things interesting more than it seems. Yep, Jim Carrey's great. I was so glad when he got the part of Eggman, because then, even when we had the horrible Sonic design, you knew it was at least going to be worth it for Jim Carrey. And then they updated the design of Sonic, and then it was just great in general. It was a lot of fun. I like those movies. I veered off into Sonic, but all right. Another one that was suggested to me is the Polar Express. Oh God, this one's so tiny. My goodness. All right. And it fucking sideways. God damn it. Okay, this isn't gonna work. And he didn't disappoint his Eggman. That he did not. Hasesoriro kase no yo ni suki miharan o padara padara. I don't know what any of that means, but hi, Super Edge Lord. Welcome to the stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Why is every version of the Polar Express sideways? It's so weird. Okay. They're like a kind of like aha. Managed to rotate it. So we need some Christmas stories? Yes, yes we are. I just finished How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And now we're gonna do the Polar Express. because someone suggested that before I started. Polar Express, written and illustrated by Chris Van Allsburg. On Christmas Eve, many years ago, I lay quietly in my bed. I did not rustle the sheets. I breathed slowly and silently. I was listening for a sound a friend had told me I'd never hear, the ringing bells of Santa's sleigh. "There's no Santa!" my friend had insisted, but I knew he was wrong. Late that night I didn't hear sounds, though not ringing bells. From outside came the sounds of hissing steam and squeaking metal. I looked through my window and saw a train standing perfectly still in front of my house. It was wrapped in an apron of steam. Snowflakes fell lightly around it. A conductor stood at the open door of one of the cars. He took a large pocket watch from his vest and looked up at my window, put on my slippers and robe. I tiptoed down and out the door. "All aboard!" the conductor cried out. I ran up to him. "Well," he said, "are you coming?" "Where?" I asked. "Why, to the North Pole, of course," was his answer. "This is the Polar Express." I took his outstretched hand and he pulled me aboard. The train was filled with other children, all sitting in their pajamas and nightgowns. We sang Christmas carols, ate candies with nougat centers as white as snow. We drank hot chocolate as thick and rich as melted chocolate bars. Outside, the light of towns and villages flickered in the distance as the Polar Express raced northward. Also, hi, welcome to the stream. I saw Polar Express in the cinema when I was a kid. I think the first time I saw it was we rented it from a video store. Polar Express, man, sounds pretty sussy too. Still remember the scene with drifting train? Left, right, left, right. Yeah, I remember that. That was a bizarre scene. It was kind of goofy how they just gotta pull one of the engineers' beards to make the mooses leave. Soon there were no more lights to be seen. We traveled through cold, dark forests, where lean wolves roamed and white-tailed rabbits hid from our train as it thundered through the quiet wilderness. We climbed mountains so high it seems we would scrape the moon, but the Polar Express never slowed down. Faster and faster we ran along, rolling over peaks and through valleys like a car on a roller coaster. The mountain turned into the hills into snow-covered plains. We crossed a barren desert of ice, the great polar ice caps. Light appeared in the distance. It looked like the lights of a strange ocean liner sailing on a frozen sea. "There!" said the conductor. "It's the North Pole!" The North Pole was a huge city standing alone at the top of the world, filled with factories where every Christmas toy was made. At first we saw no elves. "They're gathering at the city," the conductor told us. "That is where Santa will give the first gift of Christmas." "Who will receive the first gift of Christmas?" we all asked. The conductor answered, "He'll choose one of you." Sorry if my Tom Hanks impression is very poor. Can I ask what you are, by the way? I mean your character. I'm just curious. I am a doppelganger. I go by the simple name of Doppel. Yeah, it's a fun concept to work with. I do have full body, but I can show that off some other time. Wait, I don't actually remember what they do. Doppelgangers take the form of other people or other things. My particular species brings misfortune to those who gaze upon one who shares their face. It is said that everyone has a doppelganger. Some even say you have 7 people who look exactly like you. This form is a basic construct, one not meant to look like anyone else. Well, some species copy. At uh, I have set faces I was born with able to transform into for mine. There are different variety, of course. Mine is more set in stone, so to speak. And when all those who share your face perish, my species expires. I really need to do a lore video, I swear to God. I have like a basic thing for it. I just haven't figured out how to make it. Little confused, but okay. Just a guy who shoots and empowers himself with music. Neat. Neat, neat, neat. It's okay to be confused. Just try to think of it as a shapeshifter that brings about misfortune, if seen. The if seen is important. And it has to be seen by, like, the person who shares that face. And that was just a notification for Twitch. Anyways. Look! Shouted one of the children. The elf. The elves! Outside we saw hundreds of elves. As our train drew closer to the center of the North Pole, we slowed to a crawl. So crowded were the streets with Santa's helpers. When the Polar Express could go no further, we stopped. The conductor led us outside. I know one mistress of luck, she hates me. She's like a yandere who'll help you when you're about to die. That sounds concerning. We passed through the crowd to the edge of a large open circle. In front of us stood Santa's sleigh. The reindeer were excited. They pranced and paced, ringing the silver sleigh bells that hung from their harness. It's a magical sound like nothing I'd ever heard. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa appeared. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us, pointed to me, and said, "Let's have this fellow here." Oh, wait, hold on. Across the circle, the elves moved apart, and Santa Claus appeared. I missed something. The elves cheered wildly. He marched over to us, pointed at me, and said, "Let's have this fellow here." He jumped into his sleigh. The conductor handed me up. I sat on Santa's knee and asked him. And he asked, "Now, what would you like for Christmas?" I knew I could have any gift I could imagine. The thing I wanted most for Christmas was not inside Santa's giant bag. What I wanted more than anything was one silver bell in Santa's sleigh. When I asked, Santa smiled. gave me a hug, told an elf to cut a bell from a reindeer's harness. The elf tossed it up to Santa. He stood, holding the bell high above him, and called, "The first gift of Christmas!" Get a follow, you're a good guy. I hope someday we meet on the same level. Aw, thanks. Thanks for the follow. I appreciate you being here. A clock struck midnight. As the elves roared their approval, Santa handed the bell to me. I put it in my bathrobe pocket. The conductor helped me down from the sleigh. Santa shouted out the reindeer's name and cracked his whip. Also, there's an ad break coming. Oh, also, that probably didn't play for you because I had my desktop audio off. God damn it. Alright, I'm gonna replay it. There we go. Unironically, I love that song. His team charged forward and climbed to the air. Santa circled once above, and then disappeared into the cold, dark, polar sky. As soon as we were back inside the Polar Express, the other children acted to see the bell. I reached in my pocket. The only thing I felt was a hole. I had lost the silver bell from Santa's sleigh. "Let's hurry outside and look for it," one of the children said. The train gave a sudden lurch and started moving. We were on our way home. It broke my heart to lose the bell. When the train reached my house, I sadly left the other children. Stood in my doorway, waved goodbye. The conductor said something from the moving train. I couldn't hear him. "What?" I yelled out. He cupped his hands around his mouth. "Merry Christmas!" he shouted. The Polar Express let out a loud blast from its whistle and sped away. POV, meet a shapeshifter that can transform into you. That's some self-cess right there. Oh, ad's going. I'll take this opportunity to go pee real quick. Alright, I'm back. On Christmas morning, my little sister, Sarah, and I opened our presents. When it looked as if everything had been unwrapped, Sarah found one last small box beneath the tree. It had my name on it. Inside was the silver bell. There was a note. Found this on the seat of my sleigh. Fix that hole in your pocket. Signed, Mr. C. I shook the bell. Made the most beautiful sound my sister and I ever heard. My mother said, "Oh, that's too bad." "Yes," said my father, "it's broken." I'd shaken the bell. My parents had not heard a sound. At one time, most of my friends could hear the bell. As years passed, it fell silent for all of them. Even Sarah found one Christmas she could no longer hear its sweet sound. Though I've grown old, the bell still rings for me, as it does for all who truly believe. And that's the end of the Polar Express. Now, let's see about another one. Hmm. I suppose I could do the night before Christmas. And maybe even the nightmare before Christmas. I don't even know if that's, I don't think that's public domain yet, though. A visit from St. Nicholas is what it's called, I guess. Yeah, okay. Oh, this was a poem this entire time? I didn't know that. All right, let's do it. It was the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hope that St. Nicholas would soon be there. Or can't even read right. In hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were all nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for our long winter nap. When out on the lawn there arose such a clatter, I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow, giving a lustrous of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and a tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. Most rapid than More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. "No Dasher, no Dancer, no Prancer, no Vixen, no Comet, no Cupid, no Daughter in Blitzen! The top of the porch, to the top of the wall! Now dash away, dash away, dash away all!" As the leaves up before, the wild hurricane fly. When they meet with an obstacle, mount to the sky, to up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof, as I drew in my head, or the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head, and I was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back. He looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose was all like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, the beard on his chin was as white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held tight in his teeth, and the smoke had encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a little round belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf. I laughed when I saw him, in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and laying his fingers aside of his nose, he, giving a nod up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, to his team gave a whistle, away they all flew, like down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, as he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." I always like that one. Very pleasant. All right. Man, I am just fucking devouring these things. Kind of wish I had something a smidge longer, but beggars can't be choosers. Let me see. Let me see. Let's see. Here we go. Ooh, one's a bit lengthy, so it should be good. All right. So now that we've done the night before Christmas, we're gonna do the Nightmare Before Christmas, the original poem by Tim Burton. It was late one fall in Halloween land. The air had quite a chill. Against the moon of a skeleton sat, alone upon a hill. He was tall and thin, with a bat bow tie. Jack Skellington was his name. He was tired and bored in Halloween land. Everything was always the same. I'm sick of scaring, the terror and the fright. I'm tired of being something that goes bump in the night. I'm bored and with leering my horrible glances. My feet hurt from dancing those skeleton dances. I don't like graveyards, I need something new. There must be more to life than just yelling boo. Then from a grave with a curl and a twist came a whimpering, whiny, spectral mist. Little ghost dog with a faint little bark and a jack-o'-lantern nose that glowed in the dark. It was Jack's dog Zero, the best friend he had, but Jack hardly noticed, which made Zero sad. All that night, and through the next day, Jack wandered and walked. He was filled with dismay. Then deep in the forest, just before night, Jack came upon an amazing sight. Not 20 feet from the spot where he stood were 3 massive doorways carved into wood. He stood before them completely in awe. He gazed transfixed by one special door. Entranced and excited with a slight sense of worry, Jack opened the door to a white windy flurry. Jack didn't know, but he'd fallen down in the middle of a place called Christmas Town. Immersed in light, Jack was no longer haunted. He had finally found the feeling he wanted. So that his friends wouldn't think him a liar, he took the present-filled stocking that hung by the fire. He took candy and toys that were stacked on the shelves, the picture of Santa with all of his elves. He took lights and ornaments and the star from the tree. And from Christmas Town's sign, he took the big letter C. He picked up everything that sparkled or glowed. He even picked up a handful of snow. He grabbed it all without being seen and took it all back to Halloween. Back in Halloween, a group of Jack's peers stared in amazement at his Christmas souvenirs. For this vision, none were prepared. Most were excited, though a few were quite scared. For the next few days, while it lightened and thundered, Jack sat alone and obsessively wondered, why is it that they get to spread laughter and cheer? Always stalk the graveyard, spreading panic and fear. Well, I could be Santa, and I could spread cheer. Why does he get to do it year after year? Outraged by injustice, Jack thought and he thought. Then he had an idea. Yes, yes, why not? In Christmas Town, Santa was making some toys. When through the din he heard a soft noise. He answered the door, and to his surprise he saw weird little creatures in strange disguise. They were altogether ugly and rather petite. They opened their sacks and yelled, "Trick or treat!" Then a confused Santa was shoved into a sack and taken to Halloween to see Mastermind Jack. In Halloween, everyone gathered once more, for they'd never seen a Santa before. As they cautiously gazed at the strange old man, Jack related to Santa his masterful plan. "My dear Mr. Claus, I think it's a crime that you've got to be Santa all of this time. But now I will give presents and I will spread cheer. We're changing places. I'm Santa this year, and it's I who'll say Merry Christmas to you, so you may lie in my coffin, creak doors, and yell boo. And please, Mr. Claus, don't think ill of my plan, for I'll do the best Santa job that I can." And though Jack and his friends thought they'd do a good job, their idea of Christmas was still quite macabre. They were packed up and ready on Christmas Eve day, with Jack hitched his reindeer to his sleek coffin sleigh. But on Christmas Eve, as they began, well, or but on Christmas Eve, as they were about to begin, a Halloween fog slowly rolled in. Jack said, "We can't leave this fog just too thick. There will be no Christmas, and I can't be Saint Nick." And a small glowing light pierced through the fog. What could it be? It was Zero, Jack's dog. Jack said, "Zero, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight?" And to be so needed was Zero's great dream, so he joyously flew to the head of the team. As the skeletal sleigh started its ghostly flight, Jack cackled, "Merry Christmas to all, and all a good night." 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the houses not a creature was peaceful, not even a mouse. Or through all the house. Let me try that again. 'Twas the nightmare before Christmas, and all through the house not a creature was peaceful, not even a mouse. The stockings were all hung by the chimney with care. When opened that morning would cause quite such a scare. The children all nestled so snug in their beds would have nightmares of monsters and skeleton heads. The moon that hung over the new fallen snow cast an eerie pale over the city below, and Santa Claus' laughter now sounded like groans, the jingling bells like chattering bones. And what to their wondrous eyes should appear but a coffin sleigh with skeleton deer, and a skeletal driver so ugly and sick. They knew in a moment this can't be Saint Nick. Man, they really went the full parallel here. From house to house, in the true sense of joy, Jack happily issued each present and toy. From rooftop to rooftop he jumped and he skipped, leaving presents that seemed to be straight from a crypt. Unaware that the world was in panic and fear, Jack merrily spread his own brand of cheer. Even the house of Susie and Dave, they got a Gumby and Pokey for the grave. Then on the home of little Jane Neiman, she got a baby doll possessed by a demon, a monstrous train with tentacle tracks, a ghoulish puppet wielding an axe, a man-eating plant disguised as a wreath, and a vampire teddy bear with very sharp teeth. There were screams of terror, but Jack didn't hear. He was much too involved with his own Christmas spirit. Sorry, let me try that again, because there was a very important syllable I missed. There were screams of terror, but Jack didn't hear it. He was much too involved with his own Christmas spirit. Jack finally looked down from the dark, starry frights and saw the commotion, the noise, and the light. Why, they're celebrating! It looks like such fun! Thanking me for the good job that I've done. But what he thought were fireworks, meant as goodwill, were bullets and missiles intended to kill. In the midst of the barrage of artillery fire, Jack urged Zero to go higher and higher. Away they all flew like the storm of a thistle, until they were hit by a well-guided missile. I didn't realize that was part of this poem. I thought that was just a movie. Oh, that's hilarious. They fell on the cemetery way out of sight. Was heard, "Merry Christmas and to all a good night!" Jack pulled himself up on a large stone cross, and there he viewed his incredible loss. I thought it'd be Santa! I had such belief! Jack was confused and filled with great grief. Not knowing where to turn, he looked towards the sky. He slipped on the grave and started to cry, as Zero and Jack lay crumpled on the ground. They suddenly heard a familiar sound. "My dear Jack," said Santa, "I applaud your intent. I know wreaking such havoc was not what you meant. And so you are sad and feeling quite blue. Taking over Christmas was the wrong thing to do. I hope you realize Halloween's the right place for you. There's a lot more, Jack, that I'd like to say. But now I must hurry, for it's almost Christmas Day." He jumped in his sleigh. With a wink of his eye, he said, "Merry Christmas," and bid them goodbye. Back home, Jack was sad, and like a dream. Santa brought Christmas, the land of Halloween. Ah, that was good. That was nice. Ah, hmm. All right. Fuck, now I need another one. Hmm. Let me see. Yeah, that is still an owned property. I mean, so was Nightmare Before Christmas, but that has a big enough fan base that I was able to find it. Let me see. I remember an old book I had. These wonderful illustrations. Oh, hey, I recognize this Nutcracker cover. I believe I had this one, or something similar. Nutcracker, How the Grinch Saved Christmas. I didn't even know that was a thing.
Unlimited later walks.
Hi MC, welcome to the stream. I was trying to figure out the next Christmas story I'm gonna do. Need more Doppel in my ear, reading me stories. Hi. But the Nutcracker. Actually, let's first check out the Grinch Saved Christmas. What is this? That is a Flash game. Yeah, that's how is it going? Enjoying Christmas so far? Well, it's Christmas Eve here, but I am enjoying reading these stories that I'm finding. It is quite fun. Okay, how about Nutcracker? How long is this? That's actually really important. Read time's only about 5 to 20 minutes. Why are there a lot of these? You know, somebody else came in and used that same joke or phrase, and I still don't know what it means. I'm gonna guess it's like a Fate reference, because I recognize those last two words as the little Santa chibis. I did a copy paste from Google. It's like, fuck, I don't know either. Let's see. Da, 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 da. The fuck is nuts and nutcrackers? The fuck is this? I I guess a book about various nutcrackers. That's weird. How the Grinch Lost Christmas. That is not a Dr. Seuss book. That looks like a parody? Or a sequel? I don't seem to be able to read this one online, though. I don't want to have to download this fucking thing. I don't want to accidentally get a virus. Okay. Small loud warning at the end. Oh, okay. Give me a moment. I have a notification over an Enos thing. Is he alive? No, Andy just had to redeploy their stream. Okay. Gonna mute the desktop then as I give this a quick look over. That is cute though. It's quite cute. But yeah, that was kind of that was kind of subtly loud at the end, wasn't it? Oh, I got an ad. I use this time to figure out what the hell I'm doing. Do, 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 do. No, anyways, the Nutcracker didn't seem to be a viable option. Shame. I have to have a physical book in my hand for that one, wouldn't I? Public domain Christmas stories. Christmas Carol. That one's long, isn't it? 'Tis the Night Before Christmas. And that. A Christmas Tree. The Elves and the Shoemaker. That's a Christmas one? The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. Library of Congress. Christmas Stories. Oh, Jesus Christ. That is a big ass book by Charles Dickens. 400 some pages. Looks like it's a collection kind of thing. Let me see. Man, if only I had planned out or actually thought ahead what I was going to be reading today. Or if I was even going to stream today, this probably wouldn't be going as nearly as badly. I kind of wish I had the scripts from the school plays that we did when I was in elementary, because those were cute. There was like this Frosty one. The one that we had was there was three Santa Clauses. Well, okay, so I should probably preface this is it was all happening on Christmas Eve, and everyone was excited for Santa to come. And there was like a sequence of the mother making food that was themed around football. Are you ready for some turkey? Would you like to eat some pie? The recipe's a little murky. The food's really gonna fly. There's a touchdown in the kitchen. I don't remember all of it, but we had to sing it. um. Anyways, after that, three Santas appear. None of them are real. There's breaking in, and there's a song called "Will the Real Santa Claus Stand Up?" There's like some police there trying to figure it all out. And then at the end, I actually had the part of Santa at the end. He just has a brief moment. Santa comes in at the end, puts down some presents, leaves, and the play ends. Really cute. I wish I had the scripts from all those. Excuse me. For the real Santa Claus, stand up, stand up, stand up. Will the real Santa Claus come here and just pass up? Hmm. Let me see. Hmm. Sorry. I don't know why I'm yawning. I haven't really done much today. Let's see here. I don't get how The Elves and the Shoemaker is considered a Christmas story. That's weird. A Kidnapped Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum. This fantasy Christmas tale by the author of Wizard of Oz. Santa lives in a castle in the Laughing Valley. Santa has helpers, but he also has enemies. On Christmas Eve, he's lassoed out of the sleigh by 5 demons. His short story is a follow-up to Baum's longer novel, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. What the Oh my god. Oh, The Adventures of Blue Carbuncle. I read that already for The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes streams. Hold on. The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. Book. Ah, Project Gutenberg. All right. How long is this thing? Oh, it's a collection of little shorts. Oh, this is cute. Okay. Youth, manhood, old age. All right. I might check out the kidnapped Santa Claus after this. That seems, if these go well, we'll check that one out. All right. The life and adventures of Santa Claus. Let's alter this a bit. There we go. One, Brzez. Have you heard in the great forest of Brzez? Nurse used to sing of it when I was a child, sang of the big tree trunks standing close together, their roots intertwining below the earth, their branches intertwining above it, of the rough coating of bark and queer gnarled limbs, of the bushy foliage that roofed the entire forest, save where the sunbeams found a path through which to touch the ground in little spots and cast weird and curious shadows over the mosses, the lichen, and the drifts of dried leaves. The forest of Brazil is mighty and grand and awesome to those who steal beyond its shade, or beneath its shade. Come from the sunlit meadows into the mazes it seems at first gloomy, then pleasant, and afterwards filled with never-ending delights. For hundreds of years it flourished in all its magnificence, the silence of its enclosures unbroken save by the chirp of busy chipmunks, the growl of wild beasts, and the songs of birds. Yet Maurice has its inhabitants. For all this, nature peopled it in the beginning with fairies, nooks, owls, and nymphs. As long as the earth stands, it will be a home, a refuge, and a playground to these immortals, who revel undisturbed in its depths. Civilization has never yet reached Brazil. Will it ever? I wonder. 2. The Child of the Forest. Once so long ago, our great-grandfathers would scarcely have heard it mentioned. There lived within the forest breeze a wood nymph named Nicolay. What? That's not Nicole, it's Am I getting it right the first time? I don't know. It's Ncile. Nicolay. It was closely related to the mighty Queen Zerline. Their home was beneath the shade of a wide-spreading oak. Once every year, on budding day, when the trees put forth their new buds, Nicolay held the golden chalice of Bach to the lips of the queen, who drank therefrom to the prosperity of the forest. So you see she was a nymph of some importance, and moreover it is said she was highly regarded because of her beauty and grace. When she was created, she could not have told Queen Zerline, could not have told. The great Ak himself could not have told. Long ago, the world was new and nymphs needed to guard the forest, administered to the wants of the young trees. Then, on some day not remembered, Nicolai sprang into being. Radiant, lovely, slight and slim as the sapling she was created to guard over. Her hair was the color that lines a chestnut burr. Her eyes were blue in the sunlight and purple in the shade. Her cheeks blossomed with the faint pink that edges the clouds at sunset. Her lips were full red, pouting and sweet. For costume she adopted an oak leaf green, all the wood nymphs dressed in that color, and no and know no others so desirable. Her dainty feet were sandal clad, while her head remained bare, over, or covering other than her silken tress. Nicola's duties were few and simple. She kept hurtful weeds from growing beneath her trees, and sapping the earth food required by her charges. She frightened away the gagoles who took evil delight in flying against the tree trunks and wounding them so they droop and dive from the poisonous contact. In dry seasons she carried water from the brooks and pools and moistened the roots of her thirsty dependents. That was the beginning. The weeds had now learned to avoid the forest where it wouldn't dwell. The loathsome gadgoles no longer dared come nigh. The trees had become old and sturdy, come to bear the drought better than more freshly sprouted. So Nicola's duties were lessened, and time grew laggard, while succeeding years became more tiresome and uneventful than the nymph's joyous spirit loved. Truly, the forest dwellers did not lack amusement. Each full moon they danced in the royal circle of the queen. There were also the feast of nuts, the jubilee of autumn tinting, and the solemn ceremony of leaf shedding, the reveille of budding day. Oh, the seasons, I got it. But these periods of enjoyment were far apart, and left many weary hours between. That a wood nymph should grow discontented was not thought of by Nikolai's sisters. It came upon her only after many years of brooding. But when once she had settled her mind that life was irksome, she had no patience for her condition, and longed to do something of real interest, to pass her days in ways hitherto undreamed of by forest nymphs. The law of the forest alone restrained her from going forth in search of adventure. All this mood lay heavy upon pretty Nikolai. It chanced that the great Ak visited the forest of Burzee, and allowed the wood nymphs, as was their wont, to lie at his feet and listen to the words of wisdom that fell from his lips. Ak is the master woodsman of the woods. He sees everything, knows more than the sons of men. That night he held my queen's hand, for he loved the nymphs as a father loves his children. Nikolai lay at his feet. Many of his sisters earnestly hearkened as he spoke. "We live so happily, my fair ones, in our forest glades," said Ox, stroking his grizzled beard thoughtfully. "But I know nothing of the sorrow and misery that falls to the lot of those poor mortals who inhabit the open spaces of the earth. They are not of our race, it's true, yet compassion well benefits it being so fairly favoured as ourselves. Often as I pass by the dwelling of some suffering mortal, I'm tempted to stop and banish the poor thing's misery. Yet suffering in moderation is natural lot of mortals. It is not our place to interfere with the laws of nature." "None the less," said the fair queen, nodding her golden head at Master Woodsman, "it would not be a vain guess that Ak has often assisted these hapless mortals." Ak smiled.
"Sometimes," he replied, "while they were very young. Children, the mortals call them. I have stopped to rescue them from misery. The men and women I dare not interfere with. They must bear the burdens nature has imposed upon them. The helpless infants, innocent children of man have the right to be happy until they become fully grown and be able to bear the trials of humanity. So I feel I was justified in assisting them. Not long ago, a year maybe, I found 4 poor children huddled in a ward night, slowly freezing to death. The parents had gone to a neighbouring village for food, and left a fire to warm the little ones while they were absent. But a storm arose, and drifted the snow in their path. They were along on the road. Meanwhile the fire went out, and the frost crept into the bones of the whitened children."
"Poor things," muttered the queen softly. "What did you do?"
"I called Nalko, bid him fetch wood from my forest, and breathe upon it until fire blazed again, and warmed the little room where the children lay. Then the sheep shivered and fell asleep until their parents came."
I'm glad you did thus, said the Queen, beaming upon the master, and Nikolai, who had eagerly listened to every word, echoed in a whisper, I too am glad.
And this very night, continued Ark, as I came to the edge of the sea, I heard a feeble cry, which I judged came from a human infant. I looked about me and found close to the woods a hapless babe lying quite naked upon the grasses, wailing piteously. Not far away, screened by the forest, crouched Shigara, the lioness, is intent upon devouring the infant for her evening meal.
And what did you do, Ark? Asked the Queen breathlessly.
Not much, being in a hurry to greet my nymphs, but I commanded Shigara to lie close to the babe and give it her milk to quiet its hunger. Told her to send word through the forest to all beasts and reptiles the child should not be harmed.
I'm glad you did thus, said the good Queen again, in a tone of relief. And this time Nikolai did not echo her word, for the nymphs, filled with a strange resolve, had suddenly stolen away from the group. Swiftly her lithe forms darted through the forest paths till they reached the edge of the mighty Brazil. She paused to gaze curiously about her. Never until now had she ventured so far. The law of the forest had placed the nymphs in its inmost depths. Nikolai knew she was breaking the law, and the thought did not give pause to her dainty feet. Yet a sight to see with her own eyes that infant Achid spoke of, for she had yet beheld of a child of man. All immortals are full grown. There is no children among them. Peering through the trees, Nikolai saw the child lying in the grass, but now was sweetly sleeping, having been comforted by the milk drawn from Shigira. He was not old enough to know what perils means. It did not feel hunger. It was content. If it did not feel hunger, it was content. Slowly the nip stole to the side of the babe and knelt upon the sward. Long row of rose-leaf color was spreading about her like a glossomorph cloud. Her lovely content Her lovely countenance expressed curiosity and surprise, most of all, a tender woman's pity. The babe was newborn, chubby and pink, was entirely helpless, while the nymph gazed, the eyes open, smiling upon her. She stretched out two dimpled arms. In another instant, Nikolai caught it to her breast, hurrying with it through the forest paths. Chapter 3 Adoption. The master woodsman suddenly rose with knitted brows.
There's a strong presence in the forest,
he declared, and the queen her nymphs turns saw standing before them Nikolai and the sleeping infant collapsed tightly in her arms, and a defiant look in her deep blue eyes. Thus for a moment they remained, the nymphs filled with surprise and consternation, but the brow of the master woodsman gradually clearing as he gazed intensely upon the beautiful immortal who willfully broken law. Then the great Ak, the wonder of all, laid his hand softly on Nikolai's flowing locks and kissed her upon her fair forehead.
For the first time in my knowledge,
said he gently,
a nymph has defied me in my eyes, yet in my eye I can find no word of chiding. What is your desire, Nikolai?
let me keep the child, she answered, beginning to tremble, falling on her knees in supplication.
Ere the force of disease where the human race has not yet penetrated?
Questioned Ark. Here, in the forest of Brizzy, replied the nymph boldly. It is my home. I am weary for lack of occupation. Let me care for the babe. See how weak and helpless it is? Surely it cannot harm Brizzy nor the master woodsman of the world.
The law, child, the law. But the law, child. But the law.
Already messing up the voice.
Oh, the law, child, the law,
cried Ox sternly. The law is made by Master Woodsman, returned Nikolai. He bids me care for the baby himself, or he himself is safe from death. Who in all the world would dare oppose him? Wings July, who had listened intently to this conversation, clapped her pretty hands gleefully to the nymph's answer. "You are very neat trapped, O Ark," she exclaimed, laughing. "Now I pray you give heed to Nicola's petition. The woodsman, as was his habit when in thought, stroked his grizzled beard slowly, then said,
She shall keep the boy, or give it my protection. I warn you all that this is the first time I've relaxed at all, so shall it be the last. Evermore to the end of the world shall mortal be adopted by an immortal. Otherwise we'd abandon our happy existence for one of trouble and anxiety. Good night, my nymphs."
Then Ark was gone from their midst. Nicolai hurried away to her bower to rejoice over her new-found treasure. Chapter 4. Claus. Another day he found Nicolai bower the most popular place in the forest. Or Nicolai's bower the most popular place in the forest. The nymphs clustered around her, and the child that lay sleeping in her lap with the expression of curiosity and delight. Nor were they wanting in praise for the great Ark's kindness in allowing Nicolai to keep the babe and care for it. Even the queen came to peer into the innocent child's face and hold a helpless chubby fist in her own fair hand. "What shall we call him, Nicolai?" she asked, smiling. "He must have a name, you know." "Let us call him... Hold on, let me try something else. Let us call him Claus," answered Nicolai, "for that means a little one." "Rather, let him be called Nicholas," returned the queen. "Or Niklaus," returned the queen, "for that means Nikolai's little one." The nymphs clapped their hands in delight, and Nicholas became the infant's name, though Nikolai loved best to call him Claus. And in after days many of her sisters followed her example. Nikolai gathered the softest moss in all the forest for Claus to lie upon, and made his bed in her own bower. Of food the infant had no lack. The nymphs searched the forest for bell udders, which grew from the goat tree, were opened and found to be filled with sweet milk. The soft eyes does willingly give a share of their milk to support the little stranger, while Shakira, the lightest, often crept stealthy into Nikolai's bower, purring softly as she lay beside the baby and fed it. So the little one flourished and grew big and sturdy day by day, while Nikolai taught him to speak and to walk and to play. His thoughts and words were sweet and gentle, for the nymphs knew no evil. Their hearts were pure and loving. He became the pet of the forest. For ox to create forbidden beast or reptile to molest him, he walked fearlessly wherever his will guided him. Presently the news reached the other immortals. The nymphs of Brazil had adopted a human infant, and that the act had been sanctioned by the great Ark. Therefore many of them came to visit the little stranger, looking upon him with great interest. First the Riles, who were first cousins to the wood nymphs, though differently formed. The Riles were required to watch over the flowers and plants. The nymphs watched over the forest trees. And they searched the wide world for food required by the root of the flowering plants, or the brilliant color possessed by the full bloom flowers were due to the dyes placed in the soil by the Riles, which were drawn through the little veins in the root and the body of the plant. They reached maturity. The Riles are busy people, but their flowers bloom, fade continuously. They are merry, light-hearted, very popular with other immortals. Next in me came the Kunks, whose duty is to watch over the beast of the world, both gentle and wild. The Kunks have a hard time of it, admitting the beasts are ungovernable and rebel against restraint. But they know how to manage them, after all. Oh, and you will find certain laws of Kunks are obeyed even by the most ferocious animals. Their anxiety these make the Kooks look old and worn and crooked. Their natures are a bit rough from associating with wild creatures continuously. Yet they are most useful to humanity and to the world in general, as their laws, the only laws the forest beasts recognize. except those of the Master Woodman. Then there were the fairies, the guardians of mankind, who were more interested in the adoption of claws than because of their own laws forbade them to become familiar with their human charges. There are instances on record where fairies have shown themselves to human beings, have even conversed with them. But they are supposed to guard the lives of mankind unseen and unknown. They favor some people more than others because they have won some distinction fairly, as the fairies are very just and impartial. The ideas of adopting a child of man had never occurred to them, because it was in every way opposed to their laws. So their curiosity was intense to behold the little stranger, adopted by Nikolai and her sister nymphs. Claus looked upon the immortals who thronged around him with fearless eyes and smiling lips. He rode laughing upon their shoulders, and the merry Rowls mischievously pulled the great beards of the low-bowed Knooks. He rested his curly head confidently upon the dainty bosom of the Fairy Queen herself. The Rowls loved the sound of his laughter, and the Knooks loved his courage. The fairies loved his innocence. The boy made friends of them all, and learned to know their laws intimately. No forest flower was trampled beneath his feet, lest the friendly lies should be grieved. Never interfere with the beast of the forest, lest his friend the cock should become, or the cooks should become angry. The fairies he loved dearly, but knowing nothing of mankind, could not understand that he was the only one of his race admitted to friendly intercourse with them. Please don't phrase it like that. This is a child. Indeed, Claus came to consider that he alone of all forest people had no like nor fellow. To him the forest was the world. He had no idea that millions of toiling, striving human creatures existed. He was happy and content. The Master Woodsman, Chapter 5. Years pass swiftly in Brazil, for the nymphs have no need to regard time in any way. Even centuries make no change in the dainty creatures, ever and ever, for they remain the same, immortals and unchanging. Klaus, however, being mortal, grew to manhood day by day. Nikolai was disturbed, presently to find him too big to lie in her lap. He had desire for other food than milk. His stout leg carried him far into Busy's heart, where he gathered supplies of nuts and berries, as well as several sweet and wholesome roots, which suited his stomach better than the Belders. He saw Nikolai's bower less frequently, till finally became his custom returned to there only to sleep. The nymph, who had come to love him dearly, was puzzled to comprehend the changed nature of her charge, and consciously altered her own mode of life to conform to his whims, followed him readily through the forest paths, as did many of her sister nymphs, explaining as they walked all the mysteries of the gigantic wood and the habit and nature of living things which dwell beneath its shade. The language of the beast became clear to little Claus. He never could understand their sulky, remorse tempers. Only the squirrels, the mice, and the rabbits seemed to possess cheerful and merry natures. Yet with the boy's laugh, or the panther growled, stroked the bear's glossy coat, while the creature snarled and bared its fangs menacingly. Growls and snarls were not for Claus, he well knew. So what did they matter? He could sing the songs of bees, recite the poetry of wood flowers, and relate the history of every blooming owl in Brazil. He helped the Rowls to feed their plants, and the cooks to keep order among the animals. The little mortals regarded him as a privileged person, being especially protected by Queen Zeline and her nymphs, and favored by the great Ak himself. One day the Master Woodsman came back to the forest of Brazil. He visited and interred all his forests throughout the world. They were many and broad. Not until he entered the glade where the queen and her nymphs were assembled to greet him did Ak remember the child he had permitted Nikolai to adopt. Then he found, sitting familiarly in the circle of lovely immortals, broad-shouldered, stalwart youth, who, when erect, stood fully as high as the shoulder of the master himself. Ak paused, silently frowning, to bend his perceiving gaze upon Klaus. The clear eyes met his own steadfastly. The woodsman gave a sigh of relief and marked their placid depths, read the met the youth's brave and innocent heart. Nonetheless, as Ox sat beside the fair queen, the golden chalice filled with rare nectar passed from lip to lip. Master Woodsman, strangely silent and reserved, stroked his beard many times with thoughtful motion. One morning, he called Claus aside in his friendly fashion, saying,
"Leave, good boy, for a time to decline, and sisters, we shall accompany me on my journey through the world."
The venture pleased Claus, who knew well the honor of being companion and of the Master Woodsman of the world. When Clyde wept for the first time in her life, clung to the boy's neck, as she could not bear to let him go. The nymph who had mothered this sturdy youth was still as dainty and charming and beautiful as when she had dared to face Ak with the babe clasped to her breast. Nor was her love less great. Ak beheld the two clinging together, seemingly as brother and sister one another. Again he wore his thoughtful look. Chapter 6. Oz discovers humanity. Taking Claus in a small clearing in the forest, the master said,
"Wash your hand upon my girdle, and all first wobbly journey through the air. For now we shall encircle the world, and look upon many of the haunts of these men from which you are descended."
These words caused Claus to marvel, for until now he had thought himself the only one of his kind upon the earth. Yet in silence he grasped firmly the girdle of the great Ak, his astonishment forbidding speech. Then the vast forest of Brazil seemed to fall away from their feet, and he found himself passing swiftly through the air at a great height. Ere long there were spires beneath them, while buildings of many shapes and colors met their downward view. It was a city of men. Knock, pausing to descend, led Claus to its enclosure. Said the master,
"So long you fasten my girdle, you will remain unseen by all mankind. Though, seeing clearly yourself, to release your grasp will be to separate yourself from me in your home in Brazil."
Ooh, that's... One of the first laws of force is obedience. Claus had no thought of disobeying the master's wish. Clung fast to the girdle, remained invisible. Thereafter, with each moment passed in the city, the youth's wonder grew. He who had supposed himself created differently from others now found the earth swarming with creatures of his own kind.
"Indeed," said Ak, "the immortals are few, but the mortals are many."
Claus looked urgently upon his fellows. There were sad faces, gay and reckless faces, pleasant faces, anxious faces, and kindly faces, all mingled in puzzling disorder. Some worked at tedious tasks, some strutted in impudent conceit, some were thoughtful and grave, while others seemed happy and content. Men of many natures were there, as everywhere. Claus found much to please him and much to make him sad. One especially noted the children, first curiously, then eagerly, then lovingly. Ragged little ones rolled in the dust of the streets, playing with scraps and pebbles. Other children, gayly dressed, with propped upon cushions and fed with sugar plums. The children of the rich were not happier than those played with the dust and petals, it seemed to Claus.
"Surely it's the time for man's greatest content,"
said Ak, following the youth's thoughts.
"At least during these years of innocent pleasure, little ones are more free from care."
"Tell me," said Claus, "why do not all babies fare alike?"
"Because they are born in both cottage and palace,"
returned the master.
"The difference is the wealth of the parents determines the lot of the child. Some are carefully tended and clothed in silk and dainty linen. Others are neglected, covered in rags."
"Yet all seem equally fair and sweet," said Claus thoughtfully.
"While they are babes, yes,"
agreed Ak.
"their joy is in being alive. They do not stop to think, and after years of doom of mankind overtakes them, they find they must struggle away, work and fret. Getting the welfare is so dear to the hearts of man. There's things unknown in a force we are in.
Oz was silent for a moment, and then he asked, "Why was I reared in the forest, among those who were not of my race?" Then Ock, in a gentle voice, told him the story of his babyhood, how he had been abandoned at the forest edge, and left a prey to wild beasts, and the loving nymph Nuclei had rescued him and brought him to manhood under the protection of the immortals. "Yet I am not one of them," said Claus musingly.
"You're not of them,"
returned the woodsman.
"Not them who cared for you, as our mother seems now like a sister to you. By the by, when you grow old and grey, she'll seem like a daughter. In another brief span, you will be but a memory. What you remains, Nuclei."
"Then why, if man must perish as he born?" demanded the boy.
"Everything perishes, except the world itself and its keepers," answered Ock. "For what life lasts? As everything on earth has its use, and I seek ways to be helpful to the world. Helpful ones are sure to live again."
Much of this Claus failed to understand fully, but a longing seized him to become helpful to his fellows. He remained grave and thoughtful while they resumed their journey. They visited many dwellings of men in many parts of the world, watching farmers toil in the fields, warriors dash into cruel fray, and merchants exchange their goods for bits of white and yellow metal. And everywhere the eyes of Claus sought out the children in love and pity. The thought of his own helpless babyhood was strong within him. He yearned to give help to the innocent little ones of his race, even as he had been scoured by or succored by this kindly nymph. Day by day, the master woodsman and his people traversed the earth, Ox speaking but seldom to the youth, who clung steadfast to his girdle, but guiding him into all places where he might become familiar with the lives of human beings. At last they returned to the grand open forest of Brazil, where the master set Claus down within the circle of nymphs, among whom the pretty Nicolai anxiously awaited him. The brow of great Ock was now calm and peaceful, the brow of Claus had become lined with deep thought. Nicolai sighed at the change of her foster son, who until now had been ever joyous and smiling. Thought came to her that never again would the life of the boy be the same as before the eventful journey with the master. Chapter 7. Claus Leaves the Forest. When good Queen Zerline had touched the golden chalice with her fair lips and passed it around the circle in honor of the traveller's return, the master woodsman of the world, who had not spoken, turned his gaze frankly upon Claus and said,
"Well?"
The boy understood, rose slowly to his feet beside Nicolai. Once slowly his eyes passed around the familiar circle of nymphs, every one of them whom he remembered as a loving comrade. Tears came unbidden to dim his sight. He gazed thereafter steadily at the master. "I have become ignorant," said he simply, "till the great Ock in his kindness taught me who and what I am. You who live so sweetly in this forest bower, very fair and useful and innocent, are no fit comrades for a son of humanity. I have looked upon man, finding him doomed to live for a brief space upon the earth, toil for the things he needs, to fade into old age, and then pass away as he leaves in autumn. Every man has his mission, which is to leave the world better in some way than he found it. I am of the race of men. Men's lot is my lot. With the tender care of the poor forsaken babe you adopted, well for your loving comradeship. During my boyhood my heart will ever overflow with gratitude. My foster mother, here he stopped, kissed Nikolai's white forehead. I shall love and cherish while life lasts. I must leave you to take my part in the endless struggle to which humanity is doomed, to live my life in my own way." "What will you do?" asked the Queen, gravely. I will devote myself to the care of children of mankind, trying to make them happy, he answered. As your own tender care of a babe brought me happiness and strength, it is just and right that I devote my life to the pleasure of other babes. Thus will the memory of the loving nymph Nicolae be planted within the hearts of thousands of my race for many years to come. Her kindly act be recounted in song and in story, while the world shall last. I have spoken well, O master. You have spoken well, returned Ark. Rising to his feet, he continued, Yet one thing must not be forgotten. Having been adopted as a child of force and the playfellow of the nymphs, came the distinction which forever separates you from your kind. Therefore, when you go forth to the world of man, you shall retain the protection of the forest. Those you now enjoy will remain with you to assist you in your labours. In any need you may call upon the nymphs, the rawls, the nooks, and the fairies. They'll serve you gladly. All the master of the woodsmen have said it, and my word is the law. Claus looked upon Ark with grateful eyes. This will make me mighty among men, he replied. Protected by these kind of friends, I may be able to make thousands of little children happy. I will try very hard to do my duty. I know the forest people will give me their sympathy and help. We will, said the Queen earnestly. We will, cried the merry Rouse, laughing. We will, shouted the crooked Canucks, scowling. We will, exclaimed the sweet nymphs proudly. But Nicolae said nothing. She only folded claws at her arm, kissed him tenderly. This world is big, continued the boy, turning again to his loyal friends. A man is everywhere. I shall begin my work near my friends, so that if I meet with misfortune, I can come to the forest for counsel or help. Sorry, I fell into half asleep. That's perfectly fine, MC. That is perfectly fine. Sleep is good for you. With that, he gave them all a loving look and turned away. No need to say goodbye. But for him, the sweet, wild life of the forest was over. He went forth bravely to meet his doom, the doom of the race of man, necessity to work, hurry and work. But Ark knew the boy's heart, was merciful, and guided his steps. Coming through Brazil to its eastern edge, Claus reached the laughing village of Oahu. On each side were rolling green hills, and a brook wandered midway between them to wind afar off beyond the valley. At its back was the grim forest. The far end of the valley, a broad plain. The eyes of the young man, which had until now reflected his grave thoughts, became brighter as he stood silent, looking out upon the laughing valley. Then, on a sudden his eyes twinkled, as stars do on a still night, grew merry and wide, for at his feet the cowslips and daisies smiled on him in friendly regard. The breeze whistled gaily as it passed by, and fluttered the locks of his forehead. The brook laughed joyously as it leapt over the pebbles and swept around the green curves of its bank. The bees sang sweet songs, they flew from dandelion to daffodil, and the beetles chirruped happily in the long grass. Sunbeams glinted peacefully over all the scene. Here, cried Claus, stretching out his arms as if to embrace the valley, will I make my home. That was many years ago. It has been his home ever since. It is his home now. Part 2, Manhood. Chapter 1, The Laughing Valley. When Claus came to the valley, it was empty save for the grass, the brook and the wildflowers, the bees and the butterflies. To make his home here and live after the fashion of man, he must have a house. This puzzled him at first, but while he stood smiling in the sunshine, found beside him an old Nelko, the servant the master woodsman. Nelko bore an axe strong and broad, with a blade that gleamed like burnished silver. He placed in the young man's hand and disappeared without a word. Claus understood, turned to the forest edge, selected a number of fallen tree trunks which he began to clear of the dead branches. He would not cut a living tree. His life among the nymphs who guarded the forest had taught him that live trees is sacred, being created things endowed with feeling. With the dead and fallen trees it was different. They had fulfilled their destiny as an active member of the forest community. Now it was fitting that their remains should minister to the needs of man. The axe bit deep in the log at each stroke, seemed to have a force of its own. Claus had but to swing and guide it. When shadows began creeping over the green hill to lie in the valley overnight, the young man chopped many logs in equal length and proper shape for building a house such he had seen the poorer classes of men inhabit. Then, resolving to wait another day before he tried fitting the logs together, Claus ate some of the sweet roots he well knew how to find, drank deeply from the laughing brook, and lay down to sleep on the grass, first seeking a spot where no flowers grew, lest the weight of his body should crush them. And while he slumbered and breathed in the perfume of the wondrous valley, the spirit of happiness crept into his heart, and drove out all the terror and care and misgiving. Nevermore would the face of Claus be clouded with anxiety. Nevermore would the trials of life weigh him down. The burden, the laughing valley had claimed him for its own. Would that we all might live in this delightful place, but then maybe it would become overcrowded, for ages had awaited it. And was it chance that led young Claus to make his home in the happy vale? Or maybe he would guess that his thoughtful friend, the immortals, had directed his steps when he wandered away from Brazil to seek a home in the great world. Certain it is that while the moon peered over the hilltops and flooded it with soft beams, the body of the sleeping stranger, the laughing village, filled with the queer, crooked shapes of the friendly nooks. These people spoke no words, but worked with skills and swiftness. The logs Claus had trimmed with his bright axe were carried to a spot beside the brook, and fitted one upon another during the night. A strong and roomy dwelling was built. The birds came sweeping into the valley at daybreak, and their song so seldom heard in the deep valley roused the stranger. He rubbed the web of sleep from his eyes and looked around. The house met his gaze. "I must thank the Knooks for this," he said gratefully. He walked into his dwelling, entered at the doorway, a large room facing him, having a fireplace at the end, a table and a bench in the middle. Beside the fireplace was a cupboard. Another door. Sorry. Another doorway was beyond. Claus entered here also and saw a smaller room with a bed against the wall and a stool set near a small stand. On the bed were many layers of dried moss brought from the forest. "Indeed, it is a palace!" exclaimed the smiling Claus. "I must thank the good Knooks again for their knowledge of man, its needs as well as for the labors in my behalf." He left his new home, more glad feeling that he was not alone in the world, though he had chosen to abandon his forest life. Friendships are not easily broken, and the immortals are everywhere. Upon reaching the brook, he drank of the pure water, and sat down on the bank to laugh at the mischievous gambols of the ripples as they pushed one another against rocks or crowded desperately to see which should first reach the turn. As they raced away, he listened to the song they sang. Rushing, pulling, on we go. Not a wave may gently flow. All are too excited, every drop delighted. Turn to spray in merry play as we tumble on our way. Nick's claws search for roots to eat, while the daffodils turn their eyes up to him, laughing and lifts their dainty song. Blooming fairly, growing rarely, never flower its were so gay, perfume breathing joy bequeathing as our colors we display. It made Claus laugh to hear the little thing's voice, their happiness as they nodded gracefully on their stems. But another string caught his ears. The sunbeams fell greatly upon his face and whispered, excuse me. Here is gladness that our race warm the valley through the days. Here is happiness to give, comfort unto all who live. Yes, yes, cried Claus in answer. This is happiness and joy in all things here. Laughing Valley is a valley of peace and goodwill. He passed the day talking with the ants and beetles and exchanging jokes with light-hearted butterflies. At night he lay on his bed of soft moss and slept soundly. Then came the fairies, merry but noiseless, bringing skillets and pots and dishes and pans and all the tools necessary to prepare food and to comfort a mortal. With these they filled cupboards and the fireplace, finally placing a stout suit of wool clothing on the stool by the bedside. When Claus awoke, he rubbed his eyes again and laughed. He spoke aloud his thanks to the fairies, the master woodmen who had sent them. Eager joy, he examined all his new possessions, wondering what some might be used for. But in the days when he had clung to the girdle of the great ark and visited the cities of men, his eyes had been quick to note all manners and customs of the race to which he belonged. So he guessed from the gifts brought from the fairies that the master expected him hereafter to live in the fashion of his fellow creatures. It means that I must plough the earth and plant corn, he reflected. Then when winter comes I shall have garnered food in plenty. As he stood in the grassy valley, he saw that to turn up the earth in furrows would destroy hundreds of pretty, helpless flowers, as well as thousands of tender blades of grass. This he could not bear to do. Therefore he stretched out his hands and uttered a particular whistle he had learned in the forest, afterwards crying, "Wiles of the field flowers, come to me!" Instantly a dozen of the queer little riles were squatting upon the ground before him, and nodded to him in cheerful greeting. Claus gazed upon them earnestly. "Your brothers of the forest, I have known and loved many years. I shall love you also when we have become friends. To me the laws of the riles, whether they're the forest or the field, are sacred. I've never wilfully destroyed one of the flowers you tend so carefully. I must plant grain for use for food during the cold winter. How am I to do this without killing the little creatures that sing to me so prettily with their fragrant blossoms?" The little rile, he who tends the buttercup, made answer. "Fret not, friend Claus. The great ark has spoken to us of you. There is better work for you in life than to labor for food. Though in all of the forest, ark has no command over us. Nonetheless, we're glad to favor one he loves. Live, therefore, to do good work you're resolved to undertake. We, the field riles, will attend to your food supplies." After this speech, the riles were no longer to be seen, and Claus drove from his mind the thought of tilling the earth. When next he wandered back to the dwelling, a bowl of fresh milk stood upon the table, bread was in the cupboard, and sweet honey filled a dish beside it. "Where'd they get the milk?" No, wait, no. We already know a place where you can get the milk. Where'd they get the bread? Wheat isn't exactly very common in the wild. A pretty basket of rosy apples and new-plucked grapes were also awaiting him. He called out, "Thank you, my friends!" The invisible riles straightway began to eat of the food. Thereafter, when hungry, he had but to look into the cupboard to find goodly supply brought by the kindly riles, and an ox cut and stacked much wood for his fireplace. The fairies brought him warm blankets and clothing. He began his life in the Laughing Valley with the favor and friendship of the immortals to minister to his every want. 2. How Claus Made the First Toy. Truly our Claus had wisdom, for his good fortune but strengthened his resolve to befriend the little ones of his own race. He knew his plan was approved by the immortals, else they would not have favored him so greatly. So he began at once to become acquainted with mankind. He walked through the valley to the plain beyond, and crossed the plain in many directions to reach the abodes of man. There stood simply, or in groups of dwellings called villages, and in nearly all houses, whether big or little, Claus found children. The youngsters soon came to know his merry laughing face and the kind glances of his bright eye, and the parents, while they regarded the young man with some scorn for loving children more than their elders, were content that their girls and boys had found a playfellow who seemed willing to amuse them. So the children romped and played games with Claus. The boys rode upon his shoulders, and girls nestled in his straw car. Babies clung fondly to his knees. Where the young man chanced to be, the sound of children's laughter followed him. To understand this better, you must know that children were much neglected in those days, gave little attention from their parents, but it became to them a marvel that so goodly a man as Claus devoted his time to making them happy. Those who knew him, you may be sure, very happy indeed. The sad faces of the poor and abused grew bright for once, and the crippled smiles despite his misfortune. And the ailing ones hushed their moans, and grieved ones their cries when their merry friend came nigh to comfort them. Only at the beautiful place of the Lord of Laird, and at the frowning castle of the Baron Braun, was Claus refused admittance. There were children at both places, but the servants at the palaces shut the door in the young stranger's face. The fierce Baron threatened to hang him with an iron hook off the castle walls, whereupon Claus sighed and went back to the poor dwellings where he was welcome. After a time, the winter drew near. The flowers lived out their lives and faded, disappeared. The beetles burrowed far into the warm earth. The butterflies deserted the meadows, and the voice of the brook grew hoarse as it had taken cold. One day, snowflakes filled all the air in Laughing Valley, dancing boisterously towards the earth and clothing in pure white raiment the roof of Claus's dwelling. At night, Jack Frost rapped at the door. "Come in!" cried Claus.
"Come out!" answered Jack, "for have a fire inside."
So Claus came out. He had known Jack Frost in the forest, and likely the jolly rogue, even while he mistrusted him. And liked the jolly rogue, even while he mistrusted him.
There, uh, yeah, there will be rare sport for me tonight, Claus, shouted the sprite. In this glorious weather, I shall nip the scores of a nose and ears to toes before daybreak.
If you love me, Jack, spare the children, begged Claus.
And why?
Asked the other in surprise. They are tender and helpless, answered Claus.
But I love to nip the tender ones, declared Jack. The old ones are tough and tie my fingers.
The young ones are weak, cannot fight you, said Claus.
True,
agreed Jack thoughtfully.
Well, I will not pinch a child this night, if I can resist the temptation, he promised. Good night, Claus.
Good night. And Ben went in and closed the door. Jack Frost ran out to the nearest village. Claus threw a log on the fire, which burned up brightly. Beside the hearth sat Blinky, a big cat given to him by Peter the Knook. His fur was soft and glossy. She purred never-ending songs of contentment. I shall not see the children again soon, said Claus. The cat, who kindly paused in her own song to listen. The winter is upon us. The snow will be deep for many days. I shall be unable to play with my little friends. The cat raised a paw and stroked her nose thoughtfully, and made no reply. So long as the fire burned and Claus sat in his easy chair by the hearth, she did not mind the weather. So passed many days and many long evenings. The cupboard was always full, but Claus became weary with having nothing to do more than feed the fire, the big wood pile the Knooks had brought him. One evening he picked up a stick of wood, began to cut it with his sharp knife. He had no thought at first except to occupy his time, whistled and sang to the cat as he carved away portions of the stick. Puss sat up on her haunches and watched him, listening at the same time to her master's merry whistle, which she loved to hear even more than her own purring songs. Claus glanced at the puss and at the stick he was whittling, till presently the wood began to have a shape. The shape was like the head of a cat, 2 ears sticking upward. Claus stopped whistling to laugh. Then both he and the cat looked at the wooden image in some surprise. And he carved out the eyes and the nose, rounded the lower part of the head, that rested upon a neck. Puss hardly knew what to make of it now, and sat up stiffly, as if watching with some suspicion what would come next. Claus knew. A head gave him an idea. He plied his knife carefully, with skill, warming slowly the body of the cat, which he made to sit upon its haunches as the real cat did, with her tail round her two front legs. The work cost him much time. The evening was long, and he had nothing better to do. Finally he gave a loud and delighted laugh. As a result of his labor, he placed the wooden cat not completed upon the hearth, opposite the real one. Puss thereafter glared at her image, raised her hair in anger, uttered a defiant mew. The wooden cat paid her no attention. Claus, much amused, laughed again. Then Blinky advanced towards the wooden image to eye it, and closely and smelled of it intelligently. Eyes and nose told the creature was wood, in spite of its natural appearance. So Puss resumed her seat and her purring. His neatly washed face at a pause she cast more than one admiring glance at her clever master. Perhaps she felt the same satisfaction we feel when we look upon good photographs of ourselves. The cat's master was himself pleased with his handiwork, without knowing exactly why. Indeed, he had great cause to congratulate himself that night. All the children throughout the world should have joined him in rejoicing, for Claus had made his first toy. Chapter 3. How the Rows Colored the Toys. A hush lay upon the laughing village now, snow-covered, yet as like a wide spread, pillows of downy flakes drifted before the dwelling, where Claus sat feeding the blaze of the fire. The brook gurgled on the beneath the sorry. The brook gurgled on beneath a heavy sheet of ice, and all living plants and insects nestled close to the Mother Earth to keep warm. The face of the moon was hidden by dark clouds, and the wind, delighting in the wintry sport, pushed and whirled the snowflakes in so many directions they could get no chance to fall to the ground. Claus heard the wind whistling and shrieking in its play, and thanked the good Quirks again for his comfortable shelter. Blinky washed her face lazily, and stared at the coals with a look of perfect content. The toy cat sat opposite the real one, and gazed straight ahead, as toy cats should. Suddenly, Claus heard a noise that sounded different from the voice of the wind, more like a wail of suffering and despair. He stood up and listened. The wind, growing boisterous, shook the door and rattled the windows to distract his attention. He waited until the wind had tired, and then, still listening, he heard once more the shrill cries of distress. Quickly he drew on his coat, pulled on his cap over his eyes, and opened the door. The wind dashed in, scattered the embers over the hearth, at the same time blowing Blinky's fur so fiercely she crept under the table to escape. Then the door was closed, and Claus was outside, peering anxiously into the darkness. The wind laughed and scolded, and tried to push him over. He stood firm. The helpless flakes stumbled against his eyes and dimmed his sight, but he rubbed them away and looked again. Snow was everywhere, white and glittering, covered the earth, filled the air. The cry was not repeated. Claus turned to go back to the house, but the wind caught him unawares, and he stumbled, fell across a snowdrift. His hand plunged into the drift, touched something that was not snow. He seized it and pulled gently towards him, found it to be a child. The next moment he lifted it into his arms and carried it into the house. The wind followed him through the door, and Claus shut it quickly. He laid the rescued child on the earth. Brushing away the snow, he discovered to be Weekum, a little boy, a little boy who lived in the village beyond the valley. Claus wrapped a warm blanket around the little one, felt the frost from the limbs. Before long, the child opened his eyes. Where he was, smiled happily. And Claus warmed milk fed the boy slowly. The cat looked on with sober curiosity. Finally, the little one curled up in his friend's arm and sighed, fell asleep. Claus, filled with gladness that he had found the wanderer, held him closely while he slumbered. The wind, finding no more mischief to do, climbed the hills, swept on towards the north. This gave weary snowflakes time to settle down to earth, and the valley became still again. The boy, having slept well in the arms of his friend, opened his eyes and sat up. Then, as a child will, he looked around the room, saw all that it contained. "Your cat is a nice cat, Claus," he said at last. "Let me hold it." But Puss objected and ran away. "The other cat won't run, Claus," continued the boy. "Let me hold that one." Claus placed the toy in his arms. The boy held it lovingly and kissed the tip of its wooden ear. "How'd you get lost in the storm, Wiggum?" asked Claus. "I started to walk to my auntie's house and lost my way," answered Wiggum. "Were you frightened?" "It was cold," said Wiggum, "and the snow got in my eyes, so I could not see. Then I kept on till I fell in the snow, without knowing where I was, and the wind blew the flakes over me and covered me up." Claus gently stroked his head. The boy looked up at him and smiled. "I'm all right now," said Wiggum. "Yes," replied Claus happily. "Now I'll put you in my warm bed, and you will sleep until morning, when I'll carry you back to your mother." "May the cat sleep with me?" asked the boy. "Yes, if you so wish it to," answered Claus. "It's a night cat," Wiggum said, smiling as Claus tucked the blankets around him. And presently the little one fell asleep with the wooden toy in his arms. When the morning came, the sun claimed the Laughing Valley, flooded it with his rays. So Claus prepared to take the lost child back to its mother. "May I keep the cat, Claus?" asked Wiggum. "It's nicer than real cats. It doesn't run away, or scratch, or bite. May I keep it?" "Yes, indeed," answered Claus, pleased with the toy he had made. It could give pleasure to the child. So he wrapped the boy and that wooden cat in a warm cloak, perching the bundle upon his broad shoulders, tramped through the snow and the drifts of the valley, across the plain beyond the poor cottage where Wiggum's mother lived. "See, Mama!" cried the boy, as soon as they entered. "I got a cat!" The good woman wept tears of joy over the rescue of her darling, and thanked Claus many times for his kind act. So he carried a warm and happy heart back to his home in the valley. That night he said to Puss, "I believe the children love wooden cats almost as well as the real one, and they can't hurt them by pulling their tails and ears. I'll make another." So this was the beginning of his great work. The next cat was better than his first. While Claus sat whittling it out, the yellow Ryl came to make him a visit, and pleased was he with the mad skill that he ran away, brought several of his fellows. There sat the red Ryl, the black Ryl, the green Ryl, the blue Ryl, and the yellow Ryl, in a circle on the floor, while Claus whittled and whittled, and the wooden cat grew into shape. "It could be made the same color as the real cat. No one would know the difference," said the yellow Ryl thoughtfully. "The little ones, maybe, would not know the difference," replied Claus, pleased with the idea. "I will bring some of the red that I color my roses and tulips with," cried the red Ryl. "Then you can make the cat's lips and tongue red." "And I will bring some green that I color my grasses and leaves with," said the green Ryl. "Then you can color the cat's eyes green." "Then I will do a bit of yellow also," remarked the yellow Ryl. "I'll fetch some of my yellow that I used to color my buttercups and goldenrods with." "The real cat is black," said the black Ryl. "I'll bring back some black that I used to color the eyes of my pansies with. You can paint the wooden cat black." "I see you have a blue ribbon about Blinky's neck," added the blue Ryl. "I will get some of the color that I used to paint the bluebells and forget-me-nots with, and you can carve a wooden
and ribbon on the toy cat's neck in painted blue. The rails disappeared. By the time Claus had finished carving out the form of the cat, they were all back with paints and brushes. They made Blinky sit upon the table, that Claus might paint the toy cat just the right color. When the work was done, the Ryls declared it was exactly as good as a live cat. "That is, to all appearances," added the Red Ryle. Blinky seemed a little offended by the attention bestowed upon the toy, and she might not seem to approve the imitation cat. She walked to the corner of the hearth, sat down with a dignified air. But Claus was delighted. As soon as morning came, he soared out, tramped the snow across the valley, and played until he came to a village. There, in a poor hut near the walls of the beautiful palace of the Lord of Laird, a little girl laid upon a wretched cot, moaning with pain. Claus approached the child, kissed her, and comforted her, and he drew the toy cat from beneath his coat, where he had hidden it, and placed it in her arms. Ah, how well he felt himself repaid for his labor at his long walk when he saw the little one's eyes grow bright with pleasure. She hugged the kitty tight to her breast as if it had been a precious gem, not let it go for a single moment. The fever was quieted, the pain grew less. He fell into a sweet and refreshing sleep. Claus laughed and whistled and sang all his way home. Never had he been so happy as on that day. When he entered his house, he found Shigura, the lioness, awaiting him. Since his babyhood, Shigura had loved Claus. While he dwelt in the forest, she had also come to visit him at Nikolai's bower. After Claus had gone to live in the Laughing Valley, Shigura had become lonely and ill at ease. Now she had braved the snowdrifts with all lions aboard to see him once more. Shigura was getting old, teeth beginning to fall out, while the hairs that tipped her ears tails changed from tawny yellow to white. Claus found her lying on his hearth. He put his arms around the neck of the lioness and hugged her lovingly. Cat had retired into a far corner, not cared to associate with Shigura. Claus told his old friend about the cat he had made, how much pleasure they had given Weekum and the sick girl. Shigura did not know about the children. Indeed, if she met a child, she could scarcely be trusted not to devour it. Interested in Claus's new labor, and said, "These images say, these im hold on, should be an older female voice. These images seem to be very attractive, yet I do not see why you should make cats, which are very unimportant animals. Suppose now that I am here, you make the image of a lioness, the queen of all beasts, then indeed your children will be happy, safe at the same time." Claus thought of this. This was a good suggestion. He got a piece of wood, sharpened his knife, while Shigura crouched upon the hearth at his feet. Which must carry carved the head and likenesses of the lioness, even to the two fierce teeth that curved over her lower jaw, the deep frowning lines above her wide-open eyes. When it was finished, he said, "You have a terrible look, Shigura." "Then the image is like me," she answered, "for I am indeed terrible to all who are not my friends." Claus now called out the body, with Shigura's long tail trailing behind it. The image of the crouching lioness was very lifelike. "It pleases me," said Shigura, yawning and stretching her body gracefully. "Now I will watch while you paint." He brought the paints the Ryls had given him from the cupboard, and colored the image to resemble the real Shigura. The lioness placed her big padded paws upon the edge of the table, raised herself while she carefully examined the toy that was her likeness. "You are indeed skillful," she said proudly. "The children will like that better than cats, I sure." Then snarling at Blinky, who arched her back in terror and whined fearfully, walked away towards her forest home with stately strides. I did not expect this to be that long. Though perhaps I should bring this to a close
on for about 2.5 hours. It is a bit on the shorter side for me, but I do have other things I need to do. So, I guess that'll be a good stopping point. Plus, my voice is starting to need to fade. So, let's see. Do, 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 do. Well, a lot of people streaming today. I wouldn't want to impose. Well, maybe we chance this one. All right, so sorry. I'd like to wish you all a fond farewell, and thank you for stopping by. If you like this, of course, follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, because it really helps me out. I probably won't be streaming tomorrow, but in that time, I want to wish you a very Merry Christmas indeed, or whatever holidays you're celebrating this winter season. So, until next time, fare thee well. Now, let's raid. Gonna raid Metacron. Or, I'm not pronouncing that right. I know I'm not. Katro, Mom. So, fare thee well.